This is gonna be a weird video. So LeBones just hit 100 subscribers. It's a nothing thing, but I feel like I should try to do something for it. So what I want to do is I want to make a play button out of dirt. So a few weeks ago I uploaded my big end of the year narrative video, and that video alone managed to bump up my subscriber count from 48 all the way up to over 100. And I get it, no one cares. It's not a big deal. This kind of stuff happens to people thousands of times a day. But you know what? It's a first for me, and I want to have a little bit of fun with it. So what I decided on was essentially I'm gonna make a dirt brick. Wow, saying this out loud, this is fucking stupid. Now look, this might sound weird, but surprisingly enough, I'm not making this up. Dirt bricks are a real thing that people all across the world use for infrastructure. The only issue is that I don't really know how to make one yet, so here, come down with me. Oh, fucking crap. So the first thing that we're gonna have to do is learn how to make a dirt brick, which I am just gonna look up right now. All right, how to make mud bricks and why you might want to. This looks promising. Mix soil and water into a thick mud, add some sand, then mix in the straw, grass, or pine needles. Okay, I'm assuming that's gonna serve as like rebar. Pour the mixture into your molds, bake bricks in sunshine for 5 to, oh, that's gonna be a problem. It'll be fine, it's gonna be fine. We'll get to that point when we get there. Alright, so the next thing that we want to do now is to find out how big we should make our brick. This actually took a while to find out, so here, 1 second. I'm going to show you the math that I did on this whiteboard. Alright, so the first thing we need to know is that the silver play button is smaller than the gold play button. And I want to make my dirt brick smaller than the silver one. But I want to keep it consistent with the difference with these two play buttons. So we need to find the difference in scale between these two play buttons. Now this is where our first problem comes in. The silver play button, we can just find the measurements with just a simple Google search. The gold play button, I can only find stuff for custom made ones on like eBay and Etsy. So we have to find out the size of the gold one ourselves. So I went and I found a photo of both of these plaques being compared in size. I took the lasso tool and cut out the silver one just to see how many pixels were being used to make up that part of the photo. I then took these measurements and divided by the amount of pixels used in that cutout of the photo to find our pixel per inch scale. I then took that scale and divided by the amount of pixels used in the gold play button in that photo, which comes out to 14 inches long and 17 inches tall. Now we can take both of these measurements and divide them together to get our difference in size of roughly 1.4 inches. We can then take that number and find out how big our brick needs to be. All we have to do is just take this number and divide it by the measurements of the silver play button about 3 times. Now I chose 3 specifically because there is a chance that this channel could reach higher milestones like 1,000 subscribers or even 10,000 subscribers. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it does, I would like to make more play buttons. So that 3, it's just kind of a contingency plan. Anyways, after doing that, we get our final scale for our dirt brick to be 4.3 inches tall and 3.6 inches long. Yeah, it is going to be a bit small, but you know what? So is 100 subscribers, and so am I. Now the last thing that we need to do is find out how much dirt we need to make up our brick, which we can do pretty easily because alongside these measurements, we also know that the silver play button is a ½ inch thick. All we need to do is just multiply these 3 numbers together to get our volume of 7.74 cubic inches. If we convert that to milliliters by multiplying by a certain number that I had to look up, we get a volume of 126.8 milliliters. And if we divide that by another number that I look up, we get our final volumetric measure of roughly 4 ounces or ½ a cup of dirt. If I told you I was in engineering for only a semester, would you believe me? Alright, so now that we have all the measurements that we need, we just now have to make the mold. And thankfully, I have an entire wood shop at my disposal to make said mold. So to do that, I'm just gonna find a bunch of scrap pieces of wood around our wood shop and just see what we can do. It's gonna be fun. So here's the current state of our mold just after getting glued together. So while that dries, we're going to focus now on the play button symbol. The play button symbols on the actual plaques are just sunken into the metal, which is something that we can replicate easily with just a really small piece of wood. The only thing we have to be really concerned about is the actual icon in the center being flush with the rest of the plate. So what I'm going to have to do is take my piece of wood here and cut it directly in half and then cut out the 2 halves of the icon with the bandsaw. And because I need to do that, that's going to be the very first thing that we do because I need a lot of surface area to grab onto this piece of wood. Surprisingly enough, I actually want to stay safe. Yeah, that was way more nerve-wracking than it should have been. All right, so the actual play button's now done. All that's left for us to do is the text. The actual plaques, I'm pretty sure the messages are laser engraved onto them. We're just gonna press ours into our brick like we're gonna do with our play button symbol. But I'm gonna be damned if I'm gonna carve out every single letter by hand just to use for this mud brick. So what we're gonna do instead is use this thing. This is a Cricut printer. If you don't know what this is, that is a fucking lie. I know my audience and I know you all have middle-aged moms. You have one of these laying around your house, I know it. Now what's great about the Cricut printer is that I can literally make whatever I want in Photoshop and then upload it to the printer itself as a PNG. And all that I have to do now is just print out my message on a thing of cardstock. Now there is a small problem with this. Originally I wanted to use the full message that you can find on the actual plaques, but given the scale that I'm working with, it's just too small for the printer to work with. But I did end up finding an easy workaround, and that's just cutting out the small bits completely because that's just too much work for me to deal with. We are talking about a mud brick after all. Alright, so here's the mold here, all fully built. As you can see, everything on the inside is actually inverted. This will just make the process of getting these imprints in the brick just much easier. I can pour in the exact amount of dirt that I need and not worry about any overspill or even just any unalignment issues if I were to put these in by hand on the top of it. Which now just leads to probably the most stressful part of this entire thing, and that's actually making the mud. What we're going to use for our mud is a standard bag of topsoil that I will mix with water, and then we'll mix it with a little bit of that giant clump of straw. Again, this is the part that I really do not want to mess up, so without further ado, let's get into it. God, I hope there's not a wolf spider in there. That would be fucking terrible. I'm not gonna lie, using potting soil was really not a good idea. You can see I'm trying to break down as much as I can to get a smooth mixture, and I'm even pulling some of the larger stuff out, some of which being actual fucking rocks. Regardless, I went ahead and I poured the mixture into the mold and let it sit for 5 days. Oh, that is fucking... Alright, so it's been a few days. I actually got the brick out of the mold, and it didn't come out too hot. It's not really that defined. It's kind of just a big lump of shit, really. And I think I might know the answer why. See, the thing with pot soil is that there's a lot more to it than just regular dirt. There's bone meal, there's wood chips, there's whatever those brown things are, rocks. And I think that plus adding straw into it was just way too much for the mold. And we're gonna try it again, but this time with just dirt from my front yard. Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Well, here it is. Here's our cup of dirt. You know, I really couldn't tell you how entertaining it is to watch me quite literally play with dirt on camera. What I will say though, and I'm sure you can notice just by watching, but using the yard soil gave me a much more smooth and consistent mixture that was just so much better than potting soil. Why was that not my first choice? Oh, and by the way, this is what it looks like when you try to dump your mold the second you pour your mud in. Yeah, that is thick. Anyways, 5 more days. Let's see what happens. So it's been 5 more days. I pulled the second brick out, and it's better, but not ideal. The mud itself actually settled really well. This is so far the most brick-like substance we've managed to make. It's just there's clearly an issue with pulling it out of the mold. Ah, shit. It's actually very simple. There's just no airflow on the bottom side of the mold, which means that water will linger there the most, which also gives the mud a longer time to actually embed itself into the mold. Now, I've got one last idea to really make this work, and that involves pulling the sides of the mold apart, putting them back together as just an empty frame, pouring the mud into that, and then taking the bottom side of the mold with the decals on it and physically pressing it into the mud to leave the imprint, and then we let it sit. And if that doesn't work, I'll find a way to fake it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I did not. Don't listen to him. Anyways, after breaking apart our precious little mold and reassembling the frame, we filled it up with mud once more and used the bottom of it like a stamp, and also the way that we should have done it since day one. Like, come on, that looks so much better. Why didn't I think of this earlier? And after 15 days of nothing but just straight trial and error, we have finally finished our 100 subscriber play button. here we are, the first ever 100 subscriber dirt play button. I actually have no idea if this is the first one. I think I'm just gonna say that for the sake of this video. I cannot believe I spent this much time, first of all, actually doing it, but second of all, actually making it work. God damn. Like, I'm looking at the other 2 attempts off screen and seeing how much I've actually improved. It's just, it's a testament, that's for sure. Obviously, this goes without saying, but thank you guys so much for actually getting me to this point. Again, it's not something to really celebrate, and this is the outcome of it, but you know what? If it weren't for your support, I wouldn't be doing this at all. I know how to do like ancient Egyptian infrastructure, all for a shitpost. So with that said, thank you guys again for watching and for your support, and I'll see you in the next video, when it comes out eventually.